Well, good evening, Windsor Gardens. What a tough act to follow, but I'm so glad all of you came to see me speak, and I'm really excited about that. So with that said, I see a lot of familiar faces, and I see some new faces as well. For all you new folks, I am Representative Sean Camacho. I'm your State House representative. I also live down the street in Lowry, and you saw my two boys who were here earlier. It is part of being a working parent that you have to pick up kids from summer camp before they start school next week, and then my wife was kind enough to pick them up. So that's why they are not here. They're not running around somewhere on the property, so they are well taken care of. But I am here to talk about our special session. By show of hands, who realized that we are having a special session next week? All right, very informed group. I love to see that. So we are having a special session for two particular reasons. One, which Congresswoman DeGette talked about, is the big bad bill. So the big bad bill, which the Republican talking point is, we're making sure people are working for their benefits, and we're saving Medicaid, which is all, as we know, a bunch of BS. But what has caused is your representation at the state level to clean up that mess. And that's what we are doing next week. So the big bad bill has threw our state budget out of whack by $1.2 billion. So if you were following the regular session, we cut about $1 billion already this year. So if you've heard me talk before, to do that first $1 billion cut during the regular session, what we had to do is essentially sweep every couch cushion in the state government. We canceled programs that haven't started yet. We literally took all of the low-hanging fruit that was possible to come up with that $1 billion shortfall. So just a few months later, we have to do it all over again. The tricky part is there are no easy solutions for this second $1 billion. There's just none left. And I always hate to be this dark cloud hanging over this, but we're going to have to do it again next regular session because we're probably going to be another $1 billion in the hole. So if you're good at public math, which I try not to do, that's about $3 billion over 2 years. That represents almost 10% of the state budget. Now think about that. If you had to cut 10% of your budget in, let's say, 3 months or in a year, what would that do to everything you've programmed, everything you budget to? It's going to cause some havoc, which is the issue that we're going to be facing next week. So the governor put out a call, which is his official notification to the legislature that I am calling you back into session. And the call had essentially 3 elements to it. One was healthcare, one was revenue, and one was AI, artificial intelligence. So in those buckets, there were specific things that are going to be addressed. I sit on the finance committee, so I'm very familiar with the revenue side of the bills that we're going to be bringing forward. And I will be bringing forward a bill that will hopefully raise about $100 million to cover that $1.2 billion gap. So I should probably correct myself a little bit. It's a $1.2 billion hole for the federal fiscal year. So the federal fiscal year operates from October to September. Now the state fiscal year operates from July to June. So we are slightly off kilter. So if you do the math, we're about $783 million for this budget year off. So in the special session, even though we're $1.2 billion off, we have to come up with an immediate $783 million to meet our constitutional requirement to have a balanced budget. So you may be asking yourself, because I did, why are we cutting all this money? There does not appear to be an economic emergency at this moment. There might be when tariffs kick in. But at this moment, there does not appear to be an economic emergency. So why are we doing this? And if you've heard me talk at all over the last 2 years, it is the one singular albatross around all of our necks that are preventing us from funding the future we all deserve, and that is Tabor. Tabor has placed this artificial cap. So even though we have the money, we don't have the money in the right amounts or in the right buckets, so we have to cut. But we have the money, but we have to cut because some of that money has to go back, some of that money can't be spent, some of that money cannot be collected. Again, this is not a way to do your budget at home, and it shouldn't be the way that your government is doing the budget here at the state level either. So be it what it may, we have Tabor, and until we can overturn it, until we can essentially fundamentally change our taxing system, we're going to have to operate within the system. So I'll give you a preview because I think I'm going to have probably one of the first bills right out of the gate, and by all accounts, it looks like it's going to be pretty successful. So what my bill does is it sells tax credits. Now you may be asking yourself, what a dumb thing. I am asking people to buy tax credits. It seems slightly counterintuitive. But what it is going to do is we are going to sell tax credits for essentially 90 cents on the dollar or 80 cents on the dollar, depending on when you use it. So basically what that means, and specifically to insurance companies. So if you are an insurance company and want to reduce your future tax liability, you can pay the state money now. And your future tax liability, let's say it's $1. If you pay me 90 cents today, I'll give you $1 credit tomorrow. It sounds like a horrible deal. However, we have Tabor. So those dollar investments that are supposed to come in the out years, we're going to be over the Tabor cap. So we'd have to return those anyway. So instead of returning that money, we're taking it up front to save some. So I told you when you elected me that I will be a warrior to fight against Tabor. I will wage a guerrilla campaign to undermine it at every opportunity. And this is a way I'm going to do it by raising $100 million by selling tax credits. So by all accounts, I'm not going to have any opposition to this, and my good friend Rebecca Stewart from Lakewood will be helping me on this bill. So this will be one of 5 of bills that we're hoping for the governor to sign. I don't have authority to talk about the other ones, but I have authority to talk about mine, and it should be made public as soon as possible because this is your money, this is your government, and I want to be as transparent as possible. And the last thing I want to do is hide anything from anybody because I don't want this bill to fail because we need $100 million to help cover this gap. So some of the other packages that we're looking at are extending some tax credits. I won't be too specific, but a lot of the bills that we're going to have to focus on are in the insurance space. So if you heard Congresswoman DeGette talk about how year over year your insurance is going to raise, that is also a problem with Tabor. Because unlike every other state, there are very few mechanisms that state government can tap into to cover issues like this. One is assessing a fee on insurance. Not a great solution. It really isn't. But what we're seeing is a disparity between communities along the Front Range and communities in the mountains. So if you remember what she said, if you live in the mountains, your insurance rates will be 38% roughly year over year increase. We're having to spend a lot of that money. We're having to cover those costs by assessing fees for folks on the Front Range. And it's unsustainable, and it's going to lead to more and more discussions about graduated income tax. It's going to lead to more discussions about engaging with voters and saying, look, we cannot maintain this pace. We are seeing Medicaid rates raise at about 8% per year, but our Tabor inflationary rate is only 3% per year. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure out our system is out of whack. We simply cannot sustain ourselves under our current regime. And the common Republican talking point will be, oh, the Democrats just spend too much. I challenge you. I just told you we may have to cut $3 billion in 2 years. I don't see any spending happening. What we are doing is taking heroic measures to protect K-12 education, protect the Medicaid obligations that we currently have, and making sure we are continuing to invest in the places that we can and that what our voters sent us to the Capitol to do. Because no one sent me to the Capitol to cut and take away services. The system that we have is going to require us to think creatively, think differently, and things are going to have to adjust. But ultimately, it's going to be incumbent upon all of us to stay engaged and keep talking about Tabor. Because if there's anything that can get us out of this hole is providing more flexibility to your elected officials to represent your interests in the Capitol. Thank you. Thank you. So there's a suite of 5 of those bills, and I talked about 2 of them. They're all going to either be related to tax credits or extending credits or removing credits in some instances, but a lot of them have to do with interfacing with insurance. In the healthcare space, we have a lot of, I mentioned what we're seeing as a state is 8% increase in Medicaid costs. We don't have the money to cover that. So what we're going to have to start considering is more enterprises for healthcare services. I don't know exactly what those bills look like because as Congresswoman DeGette said, Congress may have unlimited amounts of bills that they can bring, but every state representative can bring one during the special session. And not every representative has to tell you what the bill is that they're bringing forward. So a lot of this is kind of black box type things. Like we just don't know, except for there's a certain number of bills that we know the governor will sign. I'm on one of them, and some other folks, if we can get these bills passed through the legislature. And the last issue that we're going to have to address is AI. Is anybody familiar? Our state or your state senator Robert Rodriguez is in charge or has passed an AI bill a few years ago that is scheduled to go into effect in February. And it's causing a lot of concern among individuals, among businesses, because a lot of those pieces, a lot of people don't know how to comply with them. So one of the things the governor wanted to talk about is, can we adjust the AI bill? And I don't know what the answer is to that. There's a lot of politics, frankly. There's a lot of interest, and it's kind of one of those amorphous things that is going to have to form itself as we're going through special session next week. So special session is going to start on Thursday of next week, so August 21st, and it's scheduled for at least 3 days because it takes 3 days to pass a bill, but there is really no end date. So we'll be there as long as it takes to make sure our budget is still in balance. Hopefully that's quick and we can all, get to the people's work and go about our summers and everything else we need to do and making sure we can essentially provide for everybody. Yes, sir. So for those who couldn't hear the question was about data centers. So who here uses AI or ChatGPT, or actually who here just does a Google search? If you do a Google search now, it's powered by AI. So to power that search, you need data centers. And data centers are popping up all across the country. I'll tell you the straight political reason. Rural communities are seeing population loss. They're seeing job loss. They see these data centers as a way to stem some of that, to bring some of that money back into their communities. I don't know if it really does. I don't know how you generate tax income from a data center other than property tax and maybe some use tax. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but I think that is the immediate draw to data centers. To all your points, they take a lot of energy and they take a lot of water. One of the benefits I've had, or one of the opportunities I've had during this interim, is I was able to go to a clean energy visit to Denmark. Denmark is a clean energy leader in the world, and they are doing things there that I could never imagine or even politically possible here in the United States. And they have embraced data centers in a very interesting way. They have district heating. Does anybody know what that is? They use the heat that's generated from data centers to essentially recharge heating for water and for homes throughout their district heating system. It's an incredibly creative way to do that. We're not there. The data centers they're talking about aren't going to do that. They're just going to suck up energy. I know that's a...
solar or renewable energy that they have to, that they can't use anything but that?
Yes, but there's a technical problem to that. So data centers require an immense amount of energy, 24 hours in it, like nonstop, continuously. So when you think about renewable sources, so for solar panels, for example, they simply cannot generate enough power for a data center, and they can't do it consistently. So there always have to be a base load of energy coming from potentially non-renewable sources until we can figure out that problem. So I don't know the answer why that makes sense. Data centers are coming. We anticipate they're coming. We do know this for a fact. The energy usage in Colorado is going to double in the next 5 years. And if we don't start embracing more renewable energy and other technologies, we're just not going to be able to get there. Because the only alternative, if we're not embracing renewable energy, is more gas plants. And that's simply not acceptable. Those gas plants have too long of a life and too big of a carbon footprint that we cannot be investing in that technology. Our challenge, though, is under this administration, they have stopped funding solar panels and hydro and other things. They have this love affair with nuclear energy, and that is what they are funding. So for all the federal grants that really make these renewable technologies or cleaner technologies accessible, the federal government isn't going there unless you're talking about nuclear. So that may not be a satisfying answer to your question, but that's kind of the landscape of it. And I think I saw his hand first, so yes, sir. Oh, yes, ma'am, sorry.
So I just get really confused. So I work for the state of Colorado, and I have, so I see a grotesque amount of waste. Every day, I see a grotesque amount of waste in Windsor. And the Democrats always blame Tabor, the Republicans always blame Democrats overspending. And we're spending enough, so we spend per capita per person $12,150 based on 2022 data, and that's slightly above average. So we're collecting enough money, and we're spending enough money, yet we're failing in almost every area. So when I go to state-to-state meetings, in the last 5 years, we've gone from being a very desirable state to being almost rock bottom, while we're spending an adequate amount of money. So while the Democrats criticize, and I'm a Democrat, we criticize what Trump is doing with the people who are homeless, who have severe mental illness, we're not offering solutions. The only thing I hear is we need more funding. Well, why do we need more funding than every other state? We're not offering solutions. We have protections like the Olmstead Act that puts people out on the streets for least restrictive environment because that's the least expensive environment. Yet we have the money and we're spending it. We rank last in treatment for individuals with mental illness, yet we're in the middle of the road about how much money we spend. It doesn't have anything to do with the money. So I get so confused about why this amazingly wealthy state is collapsed.
So thank you. Hopefully you heard part of that. The criticism is Democrats always blame Tabor, Republicans always blame spending, and it appears that we have enough money. And I will agree with you. Under our current structure, we bring in enough revenue. Our problem is we don't have the flexibility to spend it. We have a cap. So if you just take all the money. So I will just, we are dead last in teacher funding. We're 48th in K-12 education. We have a higher education system that is ready to collapse because we can't fund it. We have Medicaid and insurance and all of these costs that in Colorado are rising beyond inflation, rising beyond our means to fund it. We do have the mechanism, or we do have a mechanism right now. We have 4% flat tax rate that brings in the revenue. We don't have the flexibility to spend it. We don't have the flexibility. We don't. We really don't. Because if you want to get creative about, I think we should cut a tax here and raise revenue in this other area, we can't do it. Tabor says any increase has to go to the vote. Hold on, ma'am. Any increase has to go to a vote of the people, right? Well, I think that's, I can go on and roll why I think that's problematic, but we'll save that for now. Yep.
We actually have a lot of some other business. Can you wrap it up?
Okay. I'm happy to talk to you on the side. I would just like to say thank you for inviting me to Windsor Gardens. And thank you very much. And after special session, I will be back and tell you all the hopefully all the great things we were able to accomplish in a very short amount of time to make sure that we're still providing for the constituents that sent us there. So happy to talk about that, and have a great rest of your summer, and we'll see you soon.